in the country. We need people to get out there and have their views known. And that's really what I was talking about when I spoke up at my State of the State speech.
So today you're pressing the Office of Management and Budget for answers on frozen funds that were allocated to Illinois that you say you're no longer able to access them. What exactly is frozen here, and how is it impacting Illinois?
Well, it goes across a whole bunch of agencies. You know, this is what's happened ever since that one day, as you recall, that Tuesday, you know, when everything got frozen.
And when they froze the grants, right? Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it's across the board in agencies that, you know, people don't even think of sometimes. And you know, what's happened is some of them haven't been unfrozen, even though they announced that, oh no, they're rescinding that order. We had a situation in Illinois where the meat processing and poultry processing industry.
Donald Trump's presidency has been an absolute disaster to start. And there are only two ways that one of his decisions goes. The first is that it backfires. It blows up in his face. Or it ends up screwing his own voters who are pissed at him. We saw this with the federal funding freeze. We've seen it with all of the actions of Doge Republican voters are abandoning Donald Trump because of his terrible decisions. The second outcome is that he just can't get what he wants done. And we've seen this in a couple places with courts pushing back against him or Democratic governors standing up to Trump. And in the best example of that, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has almost completely stopped and prevented Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda, which has been a tremendous failure, thank God. And in doing so, he has led Donald Trump into a little bit of a truth social tantrum that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me. Now, I want to get into Donald Trump's post on Truth Social. But before we do, I think we should hear from J.B. Pritzker in an interview he did, talking about how he's combating Trump. So let's take a look.
Well, we're talking about the death of a constitutional republic. That's what happened in Germany in 1933, 1934. And we're seeing today that you've got an administration in Washington that's ignoring court orders, literally ignoring when a judge says you can't do this. They're going ahead and doing it anyway. The question is, where does that stop? The courts don't have the ability to enforce their orders, and the president is supposed to obey them, but is not. So this is just one piece of a very long story that's developed over the last 6 weeks of the ignorance of constitutional norms and indeed disobeying the Constitution, announcing that we're going to do away with birthright citizenship. That's been established. Well, it's in the Constitution, for goodness sakes. So I really think people need to wake up to what's happening in Washington. And I felt like, based on my own experience, I led the building of a Holocaust museum. I worked with Holocaust survivors for a decade to open that museum. I know what happened day by day almost that led to the Holocaust. And I'm not suggesting that's exactly where we're going, but I know what happened in the early 30s with the death of the German democracy, and that could happen in the United States.
And what do you think would result? I mean, obviously, it is important for us to be upholding norms, and obviously, if the president is told by a court, you can't do that or whatever, he has the right to appeal it, but he doesn't have the right to ignore it. Where do you think this ends?
Well, that is the question. The question is, will people wake up? Will people show up to protest, to make sure that their representatives understand that they can't go along with this? This is literally the end of the republic as we know it. If we don't stand up to Donald Trump in his decision to essentially break down the government according to what he wants and according to what he believes is in the best interests of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the country. We need people to get out there and have their views known. And that's really what I was talking about when I spoke up at my State of the State speech.
So today you're pressing the Office of Management and Budget for answers on frozen funds that were allocated to Illinois that you say you're no longer able to access them. What exactly is frozen here, and how is it impacting Illinois?
Well, it goes across a whole bunch of agencies. You know, this is what's happened ever since that one day, as you recall, that Tuesday, you know, when everything got frozen.
And when they froze the grants, right? Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it's across the board in agencies that, you know, people don't even think of sometimes. And, you know, what's happened is some of them haven't been unfrozen, even though they announced that, oh, no, they're rescinding that order. We had a situation in Illinois where the meat processing and poultry processing industry couldn't get inspectors because they're not getting paid. And so that's a huge industry in my state.
Sure.
So people lose their jobs. The supply chain for that food gets broken, and we all have experienced that. Prices go up as a result of that. And then, you know, there's the danger of contamination in the food if you don't have those inspectors. These are the kinds of things that, you know, people like Elon Musk don't understand. And frankly, it doesn't seem to affect them. I'm sure he's probably got a taster for his food. The fact is that he doesn't care about any of these things that affect average Americans every single day. You know, we've got to speak out about this. The biggest thing that we're seeing is that in agency after agency, there's some piece of it that either, you know, it's either because they're incompetent or cruel. They're just turning things off. And we have no control over it at the state level. And so we're making sure that the author of the Project 2025 plan, who is now the head of the OMB, knows what we have lost. $1.8 billion has not been paid to organizations in Illinois that people rely upon sometimes for everyday things. And this is happening in all 50 states, I guarantee. We just happen to have added it all up.
So this is exactly what I'd like to see from every Democratic governor. This is how we have to be standing up to Donald Trump. His agenda, as AOC had said, specifically on immigration, is not popular. I feel like Democrats fall into this trap of thinking it is. No, we just do not work to message of how unpopular voters should think. It is. Voters should hate Donald Trump's mass deportation plan. It is immoral. It wrecks communities. It is bad for the economy. So we get a message against him. And that is why Donald Trump is kind of floundering right now and made this post on Truth Social. Knowing how badly things are going for him, President Trump made a promise to the American people that he's going to make their community safer for those sanctuary cities that want to push back and impede us. Will double demand, force. There will double work, sight, enforcement there. The 14th Amendment right of American citizenship never had anything to do with modern day gate crashers, illegal immigrants who break the law by being in our country. It had everything to do with giving citizenship to former slaves. Our founding fathers are spinning in their graves at the idea that our country can be taken away from us. No nation in the world has anything like this. Our lawyers and judges have to be tough and protect America. Now, Donald Trump has made a lot of crazy immigration posts, but I wanted to share that one specifically because what Tom H. Mon has been doing lately is clearly nothing to do with enforcing immigration law. What Donald Trump and him are all about is intimidation. We talked about how Tom Homan said he was going to investigate AOC for simply telling people their rights if they were approached by an ICE agent sharing with them what they're constitutionally protected from. And Donald Trump wants to investigate that we have seen places of worship be invaded by ICE agents. We have seen preschools, middle schools, high schools, daycare centers, hospitals. They want communities to feel unsafe. Thankfully, we have courts pushing back against that. But it's what the Trump administration is really all about. It is trying to get people scared. It is trying to disrupt communities. It is trying to make people fear Donald Trump because he knows how weak he is. That is what this is all about. And it's unconstitutional and it's criminal. And AOC did a great job calling it out here.
Someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court. without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty. Without being found guilty of a crime, they will be rounded up. That is what is inside this bill, a fundamental suspension of a core American value. And that is why I rise to oppose it. If you're a dreamer, all someone has to do is point a finger and you will be rounded up. And we have seen moments like these happen before. In the Patriot Act, in the wake of the travesty of 9/11, a fundamental suspension of American civil liberties. That is what we are seeing here today. Mr. Speaker, you may wonder why so many of our friends across the aisle who care so deeply about the rule of law happen to be so desperate to pass this bill, after they are unleashing people who attacked police officers here on this Capitol into roaming our streets, who are publicly saying now they want to get a gun. Suddenly, these folks care about public safety? I don't think so.
Not only is this just a means of intimidation, like I said, it's also a way to distract. It is the place where Donald Trump goes where he feels uncomfortable. Fearmonger about immigration, fearmonger about immigration, fearmonger about immigration. That's what he does when he's on the ropes. I expect to see it more, considering what we've seen out of a lot of the polling around how people are viewing Donald Trump's handling of the economy. The thing he said, he was going to fix the thing. He lied about being able to fix. Donald Trump lied. What a shock that is. But he's got to distract people, because while consumer confidence is tank, prices are skyrocketing. People are losing their jobs because of Elon's Doge cuts, because of Donald Trump's horrible handling of the economy. And somehow only a month, he's decided he can screw everything up. They got to distract from their disastrous decisions. They also have to distract from what their broader plan is, right? It's never about immigration. If they actually cared, they would have passed the bipartisan Border B bill last year. And if they actually cared, they'd put someone like Vote Harris, who knows what she's talking about, in charge. But that's a different video. What this is about is distraction from this legislation right here.
Today, Republicans here in the House will try to pass this billionaire budget resolution. There's some, it's terrible. They're going to try, and now they're going to try to talk about their complicated math or legalese, but what's going on for the everyday person is really simple. And so I want the folks watching at home to know that what House Republicans are trying to pass today is to steal from seniors, steal from children, steal from veterans, all to pay for tax cuts for the ultra-rich. That's what it is. They want to end Medicaid as we know it just to pay for tax breaks for guys like Elon Musk. The bottom line is their plan is billionaires get richer, everybody else gets screwed. Now, they think they've got a lot going for them. They've got the money. They've got the big corporations. They have the White House and the Republicans in Congress. But I don't really like their odds, because House Republicans and billionaires are picking a fight with working Americans. And in a democracy, the people win. 8 years ago, when extreme Republicans had the White House and both the House and the Senate, they had the money. They had their plan to take health care away from millions of Americans and end the Affordable Care Act, but the American people won and those House Republicans lost. And we're right back in the same situation, because today something is happening in America. Americans are rising up to say we want a government by and for the people, not by and for the billionaires. You see it in protests and marches and at Republican town halls all across the country. I can promise you, even though when the press go and ask some of these Republicans whether they're worried about what they're seeing at their town halls, whether they're worried about those protests, they have to lie through their teeth when they say they're not worried, because we hear them in the hallway worried. They're worried because they know that they have a choice. They can either be representatives of their districts, or they can act like Trump.
The tax cuts always comes back to the tax cuts. Always comes back to the tax cuts. They don't want us paying attention, and they don't want us calling them out. But we are going to every single day on this show if you want to support that. As always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue in the comments. Till next time, I'll see you soon.